can stop the search for something intellectual and fulfilling. You've tuned into the Diary of a Bald Man, and there is no going back. Let the moaning, groaning, and bitching begin in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to Diary of a Bald Man. This is Alan Woffard, and today we have a special guest. Not somebody that I've met personally, but somebody I've been involved with for years on Facebook's group, U.S. Safety Professionals. Today we are joined by Jorge Torres, who's coming to us. Jorge, correct me if I'm wrong. You're coming to us out of Florida, correct?
Yes, sir. Winter Haven, Florida.
Winter Haven, Florida. God's waiting room. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So,
Yep.
Jorge, are you originally from the Florida area?
I am not. I'm actually born and raised in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Moved up to Florida in '97, and then after bouncing around the country for a while, decided to come set some roots back in Florida again.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And the reason I say it, a lot of the Puerto Ricans I met and worked with in the military, for some reason, went to like New Jersey, New York, up in the northeast quarter of the states. And what made you choose Florida as a landing spot?
The weather, actually. I spent time in Northwest and the Northeast, and they can keep that white stuff that falls from the sky, man. I was not made for that.
Think how much you'd save on air conditioning in the winter, though. I mean,
Well, and I'm saving the money from buying 15 sets of clothes, though.
That's true. One of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, like Tennessee, is Florida a tax-free state? You don't pay state taxes?
It is, and that's one of the benefits. No state income tax, like Tennessee, Texas, they're the same. I did spend some time in California, and that hurts the pocket.
Yes. I worked out there briefly in Orange County and near Lawrence Livermore Labs years and years ago as a contractor. Okay. And yeah, the taxes out there in North Carolina just killed me. The cost of living out there, I can't even imagine what it is right now. How about Florida? You know, I'm joking about it being God's living room, but I do know a lot of retired persons, including my brother-in-law. He just got out of the Air Force and out of the Army Corps of Engineers, moved down there because of the tax breaks, because of the weather. Bikini season, I wish he would avoid. He's really not that great in a thong. And brother, I love you out there, Kevin. If you are listening, I don't know. Maybe you look great in a thong. I don't know. I'm just judging a little too much ahead of the curve. So, Jorge, if somebody was to come to your area of Florida, what would be an attraction that you felt that they would really need to see? Or what would be something that you'd say, hey, this is a do not miss opportunity if you're in our area?
Well, I mean, I'm in Central Florida, so obviously there's the Disney's and the Busch Gardens and the Legoland. Legoland is actually based here in Winter Haven, so it's a small little park, especially if you have younger kids. Don't miss out on that. It's a beautiful place. But I'll be honest, I'm more of a get away from the crowds kind of person.
Are you an introvert?
I tend to be. I can do okay with people, but I like my quiet time. Like, one of the reasons I moved to where I'm at, and for reference, Winter Haven is the geographical center of Florida. I'm literally 3 hours from North Florida, 3 hours from Miami, hour and a half from each one of the east and west coasts.
How far are you from Ocala?
The south part of Ocala, I'm about 45 minutes.
Okay, so you're still too close for all that traffic and everything.
Yeah, I mean, you can't avoid it. I mean, if you're anywhere in Central Florida, you are going to deal with I-4, so that is the parking lot of the South, and it's horrible. But yeah, I mean, my favorite place to visit in Florida is St. Augustine. It's a beautiful little town. Especially in the fall, you get a little bit of the cooler weather. It's, up higher north, closer to Jacksonville. So that's where I would say if you want to go to like a attraction place, that would be it.
That sounds good, brother. Yeah, a lot of friends when I was working in Alaska lived down in Florida. And they'd say the same thing, get outside of Panama City, get outside of the heavy touristy areas, but close enough where if you needed that type of social interaction, it was available. But
Correct.
yeah, I like that. So the parks now. Well, what about food? Does the Puerto Rican community have a large presence there? Do you have the
Oh my God.
opportunity to go to I don't see very many Puerto Rican restaurants up here in Knoxville. They're probably existing, but I haven't seen anybody, put out, hey, you can come here for this original cuisine. What about your area of Florida? Is there a good sized Cuban presence that you can socially interact with?
Yeah, I mean, there's everything here. When I first moved to Florida back in 95, 96, it was pretty much, Kissimmee was mini Puerto Rico. Now coming back, and I've been here already about 9 years, I was kind of surprised of how broad the Hispanic community has become in
Nice.
Central Florida. I mean, it's everything from Nicaraguan, Venezuelan, Cuban. You associated Miami with Cubans, and now the Central Florida. There's a lot of Cuban community here, but yeah, there's always been a very large Puerto Rican community in Central Florida. So as far as food goes, there's great food anywhere you go here. And coincidentally, I did live in Knoxville for a while, and you are right. There's great food of all kinds, not much for the Hispanics. There are a lot of good Mexican places, but not
Yes.
much Caribbean food.
No, I've actually looked for like Jamaican, Cuban food because when I was in the Army and I was stationed at Fort Bliss in El Paso, a lot of the ESLs coming out of Fort Buchanan for training would come
Mhm.
through Fort Bliss and then transition to San Antonio to the air base for basic. And I met a lot of great people out of Fajardo. Is it Fajardo? And Puerto
Yeah,
Real.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
they would share some of the stuff when I'd visit them when I was stationed in Alabama and I'd drive to Florida.
Hmm.
And, they were stationed in those areas and they was like, oh man, this is great. And that's where I first
Yeah.
had pastelitos, if I'm saying that correctly. Excuse me, I'm used to empanadas. I like the Jamaican empanadas. But then they made pastelitos with pollo. And I was like, man, that is good. You wasn't dry, things like that. But didn't get to try too much of the cuisine
Yeah.
and just the passion that they had for cooking and entertaining with guests and stuff. It mirrored a lot
Hmm.
of what you see in Latin America in some of the areas. So that's great to know. So
Yeah.
you transition back into Florida. Right now, please talk about your family and the community. I mean, you do a lot for your sons. Is it the band? Is that correct? The band, the scouts, and everything.
Yeah, so it
Nice.
both. So when he was, he's an only son. So when he was
Right.
born, we knew he wasn't going to have any siblings. So I wanted to expose him to having to deal with other kids, and Scouts was a fantastic place for that. He did the whole thing from Cub Scouts all the way up to getting his Eagle Scout uh, 4 years ago, right at the beginning of high school. But along the way, he picked up a trumpet and a guitar, and he started, learning about music, developing a passion for that. So when high school came around, he wanted to be in the high school band.
Nice.
And I'll tell you what, man, he found his passion. He is a musician through and through. And I don't know where he gets it from because his mom can dance and I can barely play a radio, right?
Well, see,
So
I was
there's
going
not.
to ask, did he get this from like you, your wife, his
I,
grandparents, or was there
you
somebody in your
know,
family with that same passion?
my mom used to sing in college. She's the only one in my family, immediate family, that I know that had any kind of musical talent. We all really enjoy music. If you listen to my Spotify playlist, I mean, there's everything from, heavy metal and grunge to classical music. I
Right.
I
I love
listen to just
classical.
about everything.
Yeah, but I listen to Ozzy more than anything on Spotify.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so he joined the band, and for the first 3 years of his, high school career, band career, I was being asked to volunteer. And at the time, I was still in the corporate world and didn't really have a lot of time. I was traveling a lot with the company that I was with. And, I kind of looked at how things were, wasn't really happy with the way things were, but I kept my mouth shut, right? Because if I'm not going to be able to help, then I'm not going to criticize either. And
Right.
then
Right.
toward the last year, once he hit senior year, I had already transitioned to having my own business and had a little more time that I could, manage things better. and allowed me to go ahead and participate. And at the time, the parents that were there were transitioning out. They were looking for someone to take over for the band booster. So I raised my hand, and I'll tell you what, man, it was one of those things that you get into not knowing what you're doing, and you immediately regret it, but then you learn to love it, right?
Good
It's like
deal.
you start getting into it, and you put your head down, and you start learning about it, and at the same time, I'm watching my son, shine and become the drum major and find his passion and decide that he wants to go into a music career. So I'm doing this thing side by side, and I'm helping with the foundation that he's using to springboard into his future, right? So that whole combination really resonated to the point that he graduated high school, and I was dumb enough to raise my hand again, and then here we go, year two of me being the president of the band boosters now. So,
Well, see, that's one of the things I enjoy when you post about your son, when he made Eagle. And I meant to ask, what do you do for his Eagle project?
so the church that the troop was aligned with or sponsored by, they had a ladies group that they had a little old house in the back of the church, and there was some, speaking about safety, right? There were some safety concerns in the back of the house when you stepped out of the back door of the house. The porch that was there was long gone, and there was a
Oh,
massive step down into the patio. And he decided that they run a little like thrift shop out of it for fundraising.
uh-huh.
So he decided he wanted to build a paver patio. Now, this is a sloped area, sloped in two directions. And I told him, look, this isn't just throwing down, blocks on the ground. This is, you're going to have to build a retainer wall and backfill and compact. And, dude, there's a little engineering here. And so, I got it. So I watch a couple videos on YouTube, and
There you go.
man,
YouTube
he
fixes
learned a few
everything, man.
things. What's that?
That YouTube, that is just a great format, to learn
Oh, heck
things.
yeah.
I fixed all of our laundry equipment and replaced stuff on the dryer and washer watching YouTube. I think
Yeah.
that's where I
Well,
learned to cook. No, cooking's TikTok. Never mind. Different
yeah.
thing.
Well, I am a YouTube certified mechanic. I mean, you can look that up. It's a thing.
Well, I saw the placards that I generated, so I'm
Yeah.
sure, when I start doing small engine repair and they say, "Where's your tools?" It's like, "Oh, wait a minute, I didn't YouTube on where to get the tools. What do you have on hand?" That's great, man. So let me ask you, and we're going to get into the book here for a minute.
Sure.
When you went to support your son and things like that, in your personal opinion, did your time in corporate take a lot of that time, like you're developing now within your family? Did that impact you, like emotionally, with the family being gone? And since you've changed, have you seen like an improvement in like the family dynamics because you're more available?
It did, absolutely. And, it's so let me back up a little bit. The last company I was with before I stepped out on my own, it was a, contractor locally here in Florida. So I was traveling occasionally. I would travel a couple times a month at most, mainly for meetings or to visit projects and whatnot. But prior to that, the company I was with for the 5 years before that was a consulting firm, and I was traveling extensively on average, 3 to 3.5 weeks out of every month. And I did that for about 5 years. Um, at the time, he was little, and, my wife had a job, and, things were pretty stable. But as he started getting older, I kind of missed or wanted not to miss some of the steps that he would be taking as he got older. So when the opportunity came for me to step away from that and get into the general contracting side with a little bit more stability and less travel,
Right,
I took it.
right.
And then that allowed me to engage with scouting. And then in the scouting, it's once a week for the meeting, and then once a month for the camp out. So it wasn't very demanding time wise. I could schedule it in, and but yeah, as far as the dynamic went, it really made a difference. I think with my son and I, we really started communicating more, and I was around. So
Yeah.
initially there's this like, well, who are you? You're never here, and now you're here every day. And as a growing boy, teenager, one thing that we have in common is that we're both very hard-headed.
No,
Yeah.
jeez.
So learning to give him space and let him make mistakes, that took some time for me to get used to that. But we got there. We still, to this day, we still bump heads, right? It's just that
Oh,
we've
you're going
learned to
to.
kind of,
He's a
yeah,
little
we've
version of
learned
you.
to identify it and take a step back, and then say, okay, so we're not doing this right. Let's stop for a minute, rethink it, and let's come back to it with a different point of view. So that dynamic really changed to the point now that it's funny. I saw a meme the other day that said one of my claim to fame, or one of my proud moments, is that my son will never say, I don't want my dad to find out. My son will say, let me call my dad. And that's the relationship we've been able to build.
Good deal.
Now with my wife, I can't say that's the same, because now I'm here every day. So now it's like, who are you and why are you telling me what to do? So um,
Good Lord. Hey, do Puerto Rican women, do they have attitudes? Are they a little bit quick with the hands, or, getting at you if you do something that they think is, that's getting on my nerves?
Absolutely. And, I'll tell you
I love
what,
it.
I made that mistake once, and I married, my first wife was Puerto Rican. And after I got divorced, I said, great women. My mom's Puerto Rican, my sister's Puerto Rican, but I'm going Mexican. So my wife, my
Miss
second wife,
Torres, I apologize. I didn't mean to call you, Puerto Rican. If I
oh,
come
no,
visit,
she's a proud Mexican now. So,
Mexican. So, Jorge, quick question. And I want to get into the book, and we're going to get into the book. If a safety professional such as yourself, whether they're Puerto Rican, would you call it Rica Mexican?
Mexican, yeah.
Mexican, anything of that nature. If they were to want to follow in your footsteps and go into the consulting, not with what you're doing now, but in your previous experience and stuff like that, what kind of guidance would you give them to consider prior to saying, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to travel, I've got a young family, it's best to do it now because the child won't know I'm gone? What kind of suggestions or advice would you give to them? Or what kind of guidance would you say, hey, maybe wait until the child's older so you can be there to help the wife raise it? What kind of guidance would you give at this point in time from your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head, right? It depends on what stage in life they are, right? If they don't have a family yet, or if they have a younger kids, I think that's the time to travel, right? And go build your career. Especially if you're going to be in the construction environment. The thing with construction is that it ends, right? We work ourselves
Right.
out of a job every project. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
taking the time to build your career, being open to opportunities. One of the things that I think helped me the most was that I was always willing to go where the work was. And it was a challenge because when I made the transition from medical services fully into safety, it was right at the time that the economy took a dump back in 2007, 2008,
Yes. That
2008
was a
or
hard
9,
time.
right?
Yeah, that was a really tough time.
Yeah, and I tell people, look, my son was born in June of 2007. 2008, I'm bouncing around the country chasing work because that's what you had to do if you wanted to stay employed, right? So we relocated, not me traveling and coming back. We relocated 9 times between 2007 and 2014 because that's what, I
Yeah,
was,
do. Yeah.
I tell people, look, people ask, well, why you do that? Well, number one, because I was just getting into a career. I didn't have either the education, the credentials, or the experience to call the shots. So I had to go where the work was. And if they told me, look, we have a job for you, but it's in California, well, here we go to California, right?
Right.
Let's go explore somewhere new.
But see, I like how you added that, brother, if I may, for a second, where you were talking
Sure.
about not having the credentials at the time. A lot of the people coming into safety or into other, types of trades or stuff, that's like, hey, I want to make top dollar. I want to be in charge. I want to be a manager and
Hmm.
stuff. But, it takes time, and you got to build up those credentials, and you got to build up, that base. And a lot of them are just impatient these days. At least that's the
Yes.
way I see it. But I'm
I
glad you
agree.
added that. You got to,
I
if you
agree.
don't have
And
it,
one of the things that I see, you and I, we're admins on this massive group, right? And one of the
yep.
things I see a lot of the comments I see there is, well, if I come from this field, I have 30 years in this field, why can't I just go into safety?
Right.
Like, well,
Yeah.
I was a paramedic for 12 years.
Did you
That did
enjoy it
not,
though?
I loved it, but that did not qualify me to be a safety professional. It
No,
gave me some
absolutely.
tools,
Yeah.
right? It gave me some tools that made the transition easier, but I still had to learn not just the safety part of the job, but I had to learn the construction industry. I had to learn the lingo. I had to learn about scheduling and budgeting and
Oh yeah.
timelines, things that being a paramedic didn't prepare me for. So, I comment a lot on the group when people take that position that, look, you got to really look at, you know, if I'm a nurse for 25 years, that doesn't qualify me to go do surgery just because I was ancillary to the other profession,
Right.
right? If I'm an architect, that doesn't automatically mean that I'm going to be a good superintendent or vice versa. So,
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, you got to learn, you got to give yourself the time to learn and develop. And this thing that people have sometimes that, well, experience is better than education or vice versa, is that, well, here's an idea. Why not do both? Right? As you're gaining experience, go educate yourself, go get those certifications. There's nothing that says that it has to be one or the other. And the more equipped you show up to an interview or any job, the more chances you're going to have. All things being equal, if you have someone with the experience and education together, they're always going to open that door faster than the one that has only one of each.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
And so, for those who are listening, when we're talking about these things, keep dreaming big. Think, have a target that you want to reach.
oh
But
yeah,
like Jorge's saying, think about the steps in between. You have to make multiple steps to get to multiple areas to get the backgrounds for a variety of jobs, especially if you're going to be in that leadership. And,
absolutely.
so in talking about your safety track, let's step back just a second, Jorge. What
Mhm.
what prompted you initially to go into the medical field? Why was it that you were going into emergency medicine? And then what was it that attracted you to that, and what did you have to go through to reach the level that you obtained?
So, it's funny because I never wanted to do that. When I graduated high school, I wanted to be a veterinarian. Turns out I didn't like to figure out how to kill animals in order to learn how to heal them. So I
Right.
kind of got disillusioned, disappointed with the whole thing. And when you have this dream that you want to do something since you're 6 years old and it just doesn't pan out, it just throws you for a curve, right? So um, I was kind of floating. I left that, went to business school, did 3 years of marketing, didn't really like where that was leading, jumped out of that. And then I was just kind of floating, just working, doing odd jobs, working, in retail and stuff like that. And I was driving, this was still back in Puerto Rico. I was driving around and I see an ad for a little community college that was offering a paramedic course. And I'm like, let's go check it out, see what it's about. And I'll tell you what, man, the first week, at the end of the first week, I fell in love with it. It kind of hit everything. It was an outdoor job. It was challenging mentally and physically. It wasn't your everyday thing.
Right.
I get bored easily. So when things are the same every single day, it just drives me wild.
Same
One of the
here.
things I like about safety, yeah, safety and construction is how dynamic the fields are.
Yeah.
And the emergency medicine, obviously, every call is different. A call can start one way and just totally turn, 90 degrees, 180 degrees and take you a different direction. So that challenge I really enjoyed. Um, and, it was helping people, right? So it's like I always had this idea that, we don't just, you know, materialize out of nowhere, right? We come from people, we're surrounded by people, and we impact people, and people impact us all day, every day. So if I have an opportunity to make a living and build a career that allows me to help the people around me, why would I not take that opportunity?
Right. And that's
Um,
why I hate people, man. They drive me absolutely nuts. I'm an
mhm.
introvert. I'm just throwing that out there. Well, brother, so what prompted the transition out of the medical field?
Similar, right? So I went from ambulance service to, work. I had an offer to go work on a job site for an OSEP project, the Owner
Okay.
Controlled Insurance Program, right? And as an on-site medic. And, these guys call me and say, hey, we're going to pay you twice as much, Monday through Friday, 7 to 4, no weekends, no overnights. And I was, well, where do I sign? I mean, is this a deal with the devil or something? Because it
Yeah.
sounds too good to be true, right? So I started doing medical, right? I was strictly a medic on a job site, but I'm in the same trailer with the safety guys. I'm kind of hearing the orientations and the conversations. And one of the guys in that trailer, who is to this day still one of my greatest mentors, he had his diploma on the wall from his degree, safety degree. And I'm like, hey, how do you get a degree in common sense? Um, and his response to me, I mean, I will never forget. He said, you know what? That's what everyone thinks. I'm going to do this. I'm going to challenge you to go get yourself a degree in common sense and then tell me what it's like. And that stuck with me, right? And, I didn't start directly going into school for it, right? Like most
Right.
people, I took the 10-hour, the 30-hour, the 500. Back then, you could do all of those within 6 months, right? This is back in the early 1900s. So you could do all of those in 6 months. So I went and did it. Started helping with the orientation on site, doing sidewalks. As I was doing the medical stuff, right? I would go out and do a little safety audit and bring it back and say, hey, here's what I found. What do you guys think, right? And got that feedback, and it just kind of continued, right? The company I was working for doing medical, they also had the position that they called safety medic. That was a kind of like a combined role. So I moved into that. They were very
Nice.
gracious in allowing me to use tuition reimbursement and help me get on the formal education path related to safety, while at the same time I was, chasing some lower level certifications and learning the job, on the job. But the motivation was the same. I was like, I can help people now. I can help them not get hurt in the first place instead of
Absolutely.
treating
That's a
them.
good way to look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of like with mine. I never wanted to go into safety. It was never a dream. On the medical side, the reason I went into medical, as a kid, I loved this TV show called MASH. And I thought that is the
Oh God, yeah.
coolest. To me, I know it was anecdotal and humorous. It was not
Mhm.
like Emergency or Adam 12, where it showed them going out on calls and stuff like that. But the fact that somebody would take that time to learn how to comfort somebody and, bend the
Mhm.
rules in order to do better treatment, things of that nature. But that's what prompted me to want to be a medic. It wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
Safety was the last damn thing until I almost got sucked into a jet engine while I was working in Alaska. I mean, it's odd. That's what prompted me. Why did nobody tell me I could get sucked into an F-16 setting
Hmm.
down chocks? I've set for C-17, C-130s, all these other jets, and that
Yeah.
was never a consideration. But nobody told me until it almost happened. So that's why my
Yeah.
focus is on training, safety training. Man, that is
Mhm.
cool how you transitioned in there. So
Yeah.
how did all this end up with you becoming Jorge Torres CSP? What brought around the idea for the bilingual safety guy? And for those listening, that is his actual business. If you go to the bilingualsafetyguy.com, this is Jorge's business. And it is a certified minority business. Is that just in Florida or just in your area, Jorge?
It's
How does that work?
it's in Hillsborough County, Florida for now. I'm actually working on the process to do the Florida State certification. Um,
Okay,
I'm still out whether I'm going to do federal or not. I don't know that I want to take that big of a fish right now, but
right.
definitely looking for Florida certification next.
Okay. But how did
Yeah.
that transition? How did that come out, going from consulting, construction, things of that nature? What prompted you, and for those listening, if you don't know it, there is a huge shortage of both women and Hispanic leadership in safety. And, I can tell you as a consultant going around investigating accidents, and most recently I took a trip to Houston. And one of the things that the Hispanic community that I was working with out there would say is we don't have anybody to translate OSHA 10, OSHA 30, to hell, just the local business safety stuff that they needed for like hazard communication and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So Jorge, how was it that you transitioned into developing such a great program like this and leaving behind construction and consulting?
So, like for most people that get into consulting, it was a side gig, right? I started helping a friend of mine that needed they had a superintendent summit that
Right.
they did every year. And he wanted someone to come and talk to the guys about safety for a little bit. And it was both, they have a group of, English speakers and a group of Spanish speakers. So it was basically doing the same presentation in both languages. And we talked about, how do you own safety when you're not the quote unquote safety guy, right? If you're the foreman or the lead or the superintendent, and your company comes to you and says, here, you're now the safety person or the person responsible for safety on your project.
Oh, yeah.
How do you deal with that? What do you do for that? And my position has always been that safety, the rules are the rules. Anyone can go read the rules. Safety management is more about relationships. How do you build relationships
Yes.
so that people want to go read the rules, right? And want to follow the rules that you're telling them are there for them to follow. So that's what my focus has always been. And, that kind of prompted it up and said, hey, I'm doing this in both languages and I'm a safety guy. I'm bilingual. I started searching online, like for names, like cool company names that relate to this. And, I did a couple of searches. I'm like, hey, this would be interesting. My thought, right, trying to be tech savvy, which I am not. I say, if someone goes to Google and searches bilingual safety, that what comes up, and what really comes up or used to come up, I haven't checked in a while, but it was a lot of like companies selling you stuff that's been translated, programs in multiple language. I mean, well, that's
Right.
great, that's good
Right.
to have that, but if you can't make sense of it, what good is it to have it in Spanish, right? If you don't know the language yourself, how do you know, number one, that it's valid, that it's good, that it's a quality product? And number two, how do you convey it? You're still not able to present it, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so I saw the opportunity there that maybe there's a chance here for something. And that's how it kind of started with, little presentations here and there for friends. And then someone called me and they referred me to someone and said, hey, I need a safety program. And they gave them my name. Person called me. I wrote the program. Then the training came out of that. Like I said, this started kind of like a side gig about 8 years ago. And then 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to fully step into it. And, I was that moment where I had enough demand that I had to turn work away so I wouldn't create a conflict with my, quote unquote day job.
Okay.
And I said, you know what, either I jump or I don't jump. And if I don't, I'm always going to wonder. So
No,
my
good point.
logic,
Yeah. Could you have made a difference? Yeah, that's a good
yeah.
way to look
And
at
my
it.
logic was, I can always go back and get another job somewhere, right? If this doesn't work out, there's work. I can go get a job. So let's give it a shot and see how it goes. And that was a little bit over about 2 years ago, and it's gone well, right? Like any other starting out business, there's obviously more that could be happening. Business never grows as fast as the business owner wants it to grow.
True.
But I also want to make sure that I'm keeping pace with myself, right? I don't want to take a bite too big then choke. One of my tenets is I'm going to provide my clients the best possible service. And if I feel like if I grow too far too fast, then I may need to compromise on that. And that's one thing I'm not willing to do. I'd rather pace myself to where I can provide the best service I can at the time, and then as resources become available, then I can have a purposeful expansion. And that's actually what I'm working on. I had a call earlier today about that, so hopefully there's more to come on that.
See, I like that. When you talk about resources, Jorge, one of the things I'm continuously asked, both from housekeeping, retail, agriculture, is to your knowledge, is there a good training platform? By good, I mean it is in the language, that's in the Hispanic language or Latino language. And I've actually utilized some videos on YouTube because, somebody would give me a PowerPoint and say, can you translate this? And I said, yeah, you can use Google Translate, but I don't know if they're structuring it correctly, things of that nature. To your knowledge, as a professional and being bilingual, is there a platform that you know of that those with Hispanic workers can get into, like an LMS, and say, hey, here's everything about slip, trip, falls. Here's things about lockout, tag out. But it's in Spanish, not with Spanish subtitles. Have you seen anything that's in Spanish? Or is that something that the market still needs?
Well, I'm actually next week. No, I got to check my schedule with my host. But I think next week or the following week, I actually have a on-demand video platform that's coming out that is multilingual, and it will be video based. The presentation is going to be in the actual language. So the person can
Nice.
select the language and the system automatically presents in that language, not subtitles, but narrated in the language of the person that is listening.
See, and I'm glad
Um,
for that, because Atlantic Training, this is not a plug for them.
mhm,
I've utilized them because that's one of the company resources that we have available. They have a lot of great videos, but it's in subtitles. And what we have found from some of our clients is they said not all of our Hispanic workers are educated enough to read that. Some of them are older, they've just been working all their life. But if they can hear the language, it's like, okay,
mhm.
they comprehend it very well. But some of them say, well, the subtitles may not be in their particular region something they understand. You talk about Guatemala, Argentina, things like that, not just Mexico,
Mhm.
but different areas of Latin America. So I didn't
Yeah,
know
and,
if you
and
knew
there,
something was available.
yeah, and so one of the things that I talk about too that you're alluding to, right? It's that, you know, culture isn't just language,
True.
right?
Very
Culture,
true.
language is just one piece, right? And you got to look at what is the origin of this individual. You have a lot of people in this country that are migrant or immigrant workers that, you know, 2 months ago were living in a jungle in Guatemala. Not only is their Spanish going to be different from
Yes.
an educated person that came here from Venezuela, it's going to be, there's a good possibility that they may not be able to read. So having a subtitle doesn't do anything for them.
Right.
A- And the
Right.
sad thing is a cultural piece of, and I'm going to generalize here because it's a semi-valid generalization, but most Hispanic workers will do the bobblehead, right? If you ask them, "Do you understand?" You get the bobblehead effect. They will
Yeah.
say yes to anything, and it's a disservice to themselves, but that's part of the culture. You don't disagree with quote unquote el jefe, the boss. So
Yeah, because that's the culture.
understanding.
Like you said, don't disagree. Yeah, don't get into verbal with them.
Correct. So
Yeah.
understanding that cultural piece is important because it's easy to just sit someone in front of a computer and play a video with Spanish subtitles, and then you come back and say, "Are you good?" And they're going to say yes, even though they didn't understand a single word. Now you get into why when you and I go out there and do safety audits, and you're looking at people like, "Why in the world are you doing that?"
Right.
Well, because they never learned it. They told you they did because they want the job, and now they're coming here trying to observe other people and see how they're doing it and following suit. And that's where you get all these bad habits being repeated and perpetuated.
Yeah. And see, and I'm glad you said that, because I was investigating some accidents within the hospitality industry, specifically housekeeping. And
Mm.
I was looking at all the number of elevated falls. I'm like, elevated falls. So I went to go look at their ladders. And the women were honest. They had one of the guys from engineering interpret and says, we don't use those ladders, because on our carts we can't put them on, so we have to go down here and grab them. So they were climbing on chairs, on
Hmm.
tabletops, beds, in order to get up there and dust and clean, because they're very short statured. A lot of the Hispanic women in the hotel industry and things like that, very short statured. So
Yeah.
I said, but who would teach you to climb on a bed? Well, my supervisor, the lady that taught me to do this. Not to be bad, but it's like, you got to do so many rooms. You got to knock these out within this time frame. Use what's in there, so you're not going to engineering or maintenance to grab ladders and things like that. But
Yeah.
I was surprised. Yeah, I hate to say monkey see, monkey do, but it is. If they're in a training thing, you're going to repeat what you see because I'm doing this. I start developing that same muscle memory because all the other housekeepers or whatever they're in, manufacturing is doing it. And then we start to understand, yeah, this is training through, mimicking. It's not a
Right.
real training thing, but mimicking what's being said or done.
Yeah, and that's the sad part is that they don't know any better because they never learned the right way. So they don't have an opportunity to make a choice as to which one am I going to pick.
Right.
This is what they learned. This is what they're going to do. And to take it back to being a paramedic, one of the things that in school you learn you know to do your med calculations. You got so many micrograms per kilogram, and you do the math, and they
Hmm.
force you to learn it the right way. And
Yeah,
then you
because you
go
got
do
to
your
fix it to
rides.
that person's body. Yeah, it's got to be based off their mass and needs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you go do your rides, and the medics, the trainers that you're with, they say, "Oh yeah, that math is there, but you know what? If you look at the person and you see this, and here's the shortcut for that." Well, now I have two tools. I have the right way, and I have a shortcut. So if at any
Yeah.
point the shortcut doesn't fit, I can always default to the long way. But when you only learn the shortcut and that's all you know, you're cheated.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. If there's only one path, you don't know you can go over here and shorten that, to help somebody. But if there's, challenges and things around that, then you've got that original path. It's got the precise mathematics, whatever, to get into it. So yeah,
Exactly.
I like that. I like that. So, with that type of challenge, and you're thinking about, okay, do I do it the quick way? Do I do this? Do I get the ladder and put, have it safer? Or do I fall? That's a lot of stress for a lot of the workers that we support. And when we deal with stress, we're thinking about, oh my God, did I train him wrong? I'm talking about myself, not you, Jorge.
Mhm.
But if one of my clients had an event, was my training not accurate? Did I not understand, their particular job set? Did I not prepare them accordingly? Then I've had people come back to me and say, Alan, it's not that. You're not there every day. So where they're getting this from is just like you stated. It's from what they see, what they have available, um, you know, what's in their environment. And if you're not in that environment to help guide them, don't expect them to be safe half the time.
Hmm.
You're going to carry that unnecessary burden, and that unnecessary grief and that unnecessary stress every time you leave us because it's like, man, I just did another accident investigation. What did I do wrong? Because we're the ones training them. They don't have them internal. So
Correct.
having said that, how did all of your experience, how did all of your recent experience and you becoming the bilingual safety guy, how did that get into your current writing of your new book, Unburdened?
Yes, I'm glad you asked because that was a long time in the making. The idea popped in my head, I don't know, years and years ago, early in my career as a safety professional. And the book kind of speaks to this. When you're in medical, you have a lot of resources around, debriefing and
Right.
stress management. And, when you have really terrible calls or outcomes, there's always resources there that are not necessarily just for show. There are many times as a paramedic where I was required after a certain call to go see or talk to someone, um, before getting onto the next shift, right? It was mandated that you
Oh,
did
yeah. Same
this.
thing when I was in law enforcement. You pulled your weapon. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
Correct. And then I transitioned to the safety world. And even before then, right? When I was doing medical on site, the first fatality that I dealt with on a job site, uh, it was different. It was different than, in an ambulance, you go pick someone up and you drop them off at the hospital and you're done. That's it. You go do your debriefing, you go through the process, you process the call, you move on to the next thing, and 6 months later, it's not there anymore, right? If you did it right, if you didn't bottle it up, it's not there anymore. or at least not in a sense that it's going to be harmful.
Right.
The fatality that I dealt with in construction, the company I was with it was a medical company, so we still had that access. I did, but the rest of the team I was working with, they didn't. The safety guys, they didn't have that, and it kind of struck me as odd that, well, we're dealing with the same incident. We both ran out there and we both took the pictures and we both interacted with the families, and we're both dealing with the workers' comp, and we're both dealing with the lawsuits and being pulled into these, statements and whatnot. And here I am, I have access to these resources to help me deal with this, and these guys don't. And it kind of shocked me, right? At the time, it was just one of those things that just kind of put a little blurb in your brain, but because I wasn't part of that team, I was like, oh, that's weird. That's interesting.
Right.
And it kind of stayed there. And then, fast forward a decade, I'm fully engaged in safety. At this point, I've dealt with several fatalities, several severe injuries. And I'll say this, right? The fatalities are one thing. They're impactful, and but they do have an end point, where the severe injuries, the cases where a person ends up paralyzed for life at 25.
Oh yeah,
those linger.
That's one that'll just mess with you. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's such a waste. It's such a loss, and it's like it just keeps coming around. Every year or so, there's a review, or there's a lot of touch points that go with it. So that wound, it's like picking at the scab over and over with no Band-Aid to go dress the wound, right? So that's kind of like what prompted the book. Is like, there's got to be a better way. And one of the things that happened with me is I started bottling things up, which I never did as
Was
a
this in
paramedic.
safety or the medical field, or like throughout?
In safety.
Okay.
Yeah, as a paramedic,
Okay.
I never bottled it up because I knew I had resources.
You had that
I knew it was
resource, right.
okay. It was okay to talk about these things. My partner and I would sit on the ambulance or cry our eyes out after a bad call.
Oh yeah, I've seen
Zero
it when I was in
judgment.
law enforcement. Yeah, it would
Yeah,
come up
zero
on an
judgment,
overdose. Yeah.
fully embraced. Then you get into construction, and it's like,
The machismo.
it's
Yeah.
that macho, yeah, toughen up, deal with it, grind your teeth, and keep going. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is not healthy, and it's eating away at people. And I would see, superintendents that were putting in 18, 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, and then they would finish one project, get beat up because, I don't know, they didn't make the extra $5,000 that the company wanted them to make, or,
Right.
they came in a day late, and then immediately they got turned over to the next project. And it's like, how do these people do this for 20 years? I mean, there's like no break.
Yeah, and you
You know,
got to think about it too. They're not going to want to take a break. Well, I know a lot in construction that will only work a certain portion of the season. That way, wintertime,
Mhm.
they're off with their families, Christmas, New Year's, so they set a point. It's like, yeah, spring, I'm going to get out. I'm going to hit all these outages. I'm going to hit, so many feet of pipe on the pipeline, whatever it is. And here's my cutoff point. And they don't want any breaks, as we know happens between a job. We shut one down, you turn the keys over, then we're on our way to the next site.
Yep.
But it's that fear of having gaps, and I've seen that happen to guys.
Yeah, and you get and that builds up, right? Time over time over time. You're spending time away from family,
Yeah.
even if you're not traveling, right? If you're on the job site 18 hours a day, you're away from your family.
Yeah, and then when you get
So
home, you're sleeping, repeating.
yeah, you might as well be, in another continent at that point. So that starts eating at people, and you see it in the way that people interact with each other.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that I learned in medical is dark humor is a great release.
It is. And veterans will tell you the same thing because, people get mad when we laugh and joke about certain things. It's like, man, this is nothing compared to what we actually went through.
Oh yeah.
Nothing.
And it's a coping mechanism, right? And so that's what I
Absolutely.
realized, that look, you're defaulting to that because you got nothing else, right? That's your way of venting. It's like, pressure cooker venting, 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 and then eventually that vent gets broken and people blow up. And I've seen it. I've seen, unfortunately, I've seen people throw away their careers because of alcohol, because of drug abuse, because of poor choices, all in a pursuit of release, right? How do I relieve all this stuff that's on me? For me, it manifested in I developed a very, very short fuse for just about everything.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not a perfectionist, but I'm the kind of person that if you tell me you got it, I expect you to have it. And I started being very brutal with that, with my team, with my son, with my wife, where I would say, hey, here's what we need. You got it? Yeah, I got it. All right. And then
I'm holding you to that standard. Yeah.
if it wasn't done, it was not a good conversation. And rather than me looking at the situation as a teaching opportunity, right, which is what I normally would have done, it's like, hey, okay, so we didn't get where we needed to get. Let's revisit this. How do we? It became a nope, you failed, you're a failure, and I was attacking people, right, for really no reason, all because I had all this pressure on myself.
Well, I was going to say, brother, it can't be for no reason. Something must have been happening to you, for it to flow through from you into that next person.
Well, no reason on their side, right?
Okay, understood.
They hadn't done anything wrong.
They just didn't meet
I
standards.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
had created an impossible standard. And that was because of it was my way of trying to control everything that was happening around me that I felt like I didn't have a lot of control of, right? So it's kind it's a trick that we play on ourselves
Hmm.
to say I'm fully in control of the things that I can control because the rest of my life is falling to pieces and I have no idea what to do. So you start tightening down those little things that you do control, you put more and more control of to kind of give you a sense that not everything is on fire. But the problem is not sustainable. It comes to a point where, you know, people don't want to be around you at all.
Oh
They
yeah,
just
yeah. You
turn
get
away. And
you get to that point, I'm sure.
yeah, I mean, if you're in a quote unquote leadership position, and this is a kind of like a funny statement I make when I talk about leadership. I said, look, if you're walking and there's no one behind you, you're not a leader. You're just walking.
I like that.
And there's a lot of times where people in quote unquote leadership positions create these impossible demands of their team where now they don't want to follow you, but you claim to that idea that you're a leader. So when they stop following you because you've become a tyrant, you instead of realizing, you tighten the fist a little more to try and control what little you have. And then that is a vicious cycle, and it will eat your soul, man. And that's where I found myself.
But
And go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Go ahead, brother.
No, that's where I found myself, and or not where I found myself. That's where my wife finally came to me and drew a line in the sand and said, "Enough is enough. This is not who you are, and this is not who you need to be."
See,
And
I like that you got a good partner that recognize, okay, this is not you, Jorge. So I like that.
oh yeah, she could have just walked out.
Yeah,
I I couldn't. I would have, but I shouldn't have blamed her if she did.
yeah.
Um, because I had become someone that I didn't recognize. And it
See, and that's
was,
the thing. You can look in the mirror every day and not notice those little changes. It's somebody on the outside. Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
she checked me. I mean, she called me out, and I had to. And then my son was, he wouldn't want to be with me, and the whole point of me changing careers fast was so that he and I could, engage and be closer. And it turned out that I was pushing him away. So all those things, I finally had to acknowledge it and figure out, okay, so if it's there, how do I deal with it? And again, in the book, I talk about the 5 lessons that I didn't develop any of it. It just kind of worked. I started doing these things, and they just worked, or not. realizing these things. So I first, like the first one is that I had to acknowledge that I wasn't okay. That was the big one for me.
Yeah, and some
It was
people
just
have difficulty in that. Yeah.
that's the hardest part, because if you don't acknowledge the problem, how in the world are you going to work on the problem? And again, being checked by my wife forced me to look in the mirror and say, you, you are not okay. And if you keep down this path, it's not going to be good. So that is my first lesson in the book is, it's okay to not be okay. You have to give yourself permission to start working on yourself.
I love
And
that. I love that you validated, it came from within, not from your environment, but something into you. So Jorge, before we have to close out, I mean,
yeah.
I wish we could do 2 more hours. Tell the listeners where they can find this book and what you feel that they can get from this. Like when I was doing One Foot Out the Door, it was about, because my old ass is getting ready to retire, and I won't
Yeah.
because I love what I do. But, where where you gave them the information about where the stress came from, internally and stuff. What is it you hope that they can get from your book, especially people in high stress jobs like ours? And where can they find it?
So I think, the main thing that resonates throughout the book, and I think the biggest message that I want people to get out of it is that number one, they're not alone.
I read that.
This
It
is
is a
not,
great book, guys. He's absolutely right. That it took a little bit of reading his, and I'm like, okay, Jorge's also like this, so I like that.
yeah, I mean, it's, I hope that it comes across as a sincere message, because it is. It's my story.
Yeah.
And it's a story that you're not alone, right? We fool ourselves into believing that we are, and that the world, is out there to get you, but you are not alone. You are not the first person to feel like this. You're not the first and only person to have these issues. You are not the only person to have an opportunity to make a change. And that's through and through the main lesson that I want people to take out of the book. And then, just give yourself permission to fail. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay not to be perfect. Um, that's the only place that growth comes from.
Yeah. And
Um,
for those listening, he's actually got information in there about journaling, meditation, breath work. Once you recognize and you begin that self treatment, there are some great content, and it's tools that he gives you for the psychological and physiological recovery. It's amazing.
mhm.
So,
And then you can find it, the launch date is this Saturday, August 9th on Amazon. There's pre-orders open right now for
nice.
the digital book on Amazon Kindle. And yeah, man, I hope, if people read it, that they get something out of it. Engage with me, look me up on social media. If, I'd
Where can
love
they
to hear your
find you at,
thoughts on the
Jorge?
book.
Yeah, let them know so they can get with you. Because hopefully, I mean, you set a great groundwork with this. Hopefully, you expand and write, some additional material. And guys, when you see this, you'll understand, because you'll see a lot of the stuff that he recognizes in your jobs and your personal life. So it can go into your social life. So I hope you
Mm.
write more, Jorge. But how do people
I
get a hold of you to say, hey, can you train me more? Because you are a trainer, you're a speaker,
Yeah,
you're everything.
absolutely. There's a plan for more material to come out. There's going to be links associated with the book for additional resources. You can find me at best way is, my name, Jorge.Torres at thebilingualsafetyguy.com. You can find the Bilingual Safety Guy in Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. I'm
I
old, so I
stalk
don't
you
have
on
like the
LinkedIn, just so
newer
you know.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm an old guy, so I don't have like the TikTok and the other stuff, right? So just
you
I
should.
used to. That's what my son says. My son, you're an old man. You're on Facebook. I'm like, hey, I got to recognize where I'm at in
No,
life,
brother, get on TikTok and let the Hispanic community know. Hey, if you need me, here's how to get a hold of me. Here's what I
Awesome.
can do. You need
Yeah,
to.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, get him to do music in the background. He can hook up your acoustics and all that, I'm sure.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, Jorge, before we go out, is there anything that you'd like to put out to the community? Any special events that are you going to have this in just like the Kindle format? Is it going to be available in paperback later? Are you going to have like any special events related to the release of your book?
No special events planned right now, but it'll be out in both Kindle and paperback. I
Nice.
am though looking to, if I can figure out how to do it. I want to, once it's out for a few weeks, I want to try and do a live event. And if anyone that's read it and wants to come in and comment and ask questions and have a little bit of discussion, anyone that's open to sharing how they found the book and what they learned from it and what they're looking to apply. I'd love to create a community around this book and
Nice.
support people supporting each other and helping each other through these hard times.
I think this is my personal opinion that you need to start a podcast based off the bilingual safety guide in the book. No, seriously, Jorge. But also have segments on it, because of the Hispanic community and the Latino community. Hey, these are things we face, and you don't have to be afraid to come up because, someone says, oh, you have to be macho, you have to fit the standards. No.
And I have to say this, which I didn't mention. So the initial launch is in English, but I am working on the translation for the book into Spanish.
Yeah,
So,
think about doing an audio book too, brother.
mhm.
You have the voice for it. Get your ass on there and record it.
Awesome.
Good deal.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you for your time. Thank you all for listening again. His name is Jorge Torres, CSP. That means Certified Safety Professional. You can find him at thebilingualsafetyguy.com, on LinkedIn, where I stalk him, not because it's a man crush, well, a little bit, like I said, like Empanadas Pastelitos. But he's based down in Florida, so if you have business needs, again, he is in Winter Haven, Florida. Look him up. Look for the book. Connect. Thank you for listening. God bless you guys. And again, if you want to get a hold of him, it's jorge.torres@thebilingualsafetyguide.com. Look it up. Make sure you spell it right. It's not Georgie. It's Jorge. Brother, thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you, man. Thank you for the forum, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, and we'll be doing it again, that I promise you.
Alan Woffard has produced this podcast for entertainment purposes. Neither this nor any other podcast he produced constitute legal, medical, marital, sexual, or professional advice. The opinions and views presented by Alan are his own and do not reflect the views or opinions of employers, clients, family, Facebook groupies, promotional sponsors, or baby Jesus. Any health information shared or mentioned as an alternative does not create any patient-physician relationship or other professional relationship between the audience and the presenters. No person listening to any podcast from this rocket surgeon should act or refrain from acting based on the content of a podcast without first seeking appropriate professional advice and or counseling, nor shall the information be used to substitute for professional advice and counseling. As stated earlier, this show is for entertainment purposes, not how to lead or change your life. Do what is best for you or what your spouse approves of. Alan Woffard and all guests of the show expressly disclaim all liability relating to any actions taken or not taken based on any and all contents of this site.